In this video, we'll cover the SASE components that enable secure overlay networks and identify where the components are deployed. The learning objectives of this video are to understand how the SD-WAN and the SD-Access components are grouped, and to learn the deployment locations of each component that build secure overlay networks. Take note that there are a few different deployment models for the SD-WAN solution, like VMware hosted, service provider hosted, and customer self-hosted. There can even be a few variants of each of these high-level models. For the purpose of this video, we'll specifically look at VMware hosted multi-tenant environment, which is the default deployment model. Let's start by understanding how the SD-WAN capable components are grouped in a typical VMware hosted tenant model. VMware Edge Cloud orchestrators are typically instantiated in a particular geo, like the Americas, EMEA, or Asia Pacific, and are multi-tenant capable. Each orchestrator has around 30 SD-WAN gateways, which together form a gateway pool where each gateway is distributed globally. Essentially, these gateways serve as multi-tenant capable services for customers as well as service providers. End customer enterprises then have their edges provisioned through the orchestrator on the management plane, and depending on where the edges are physically located, will leverage the gateways that are close in proximity to them for the control plane and the optional data plane. Depending on the user accounts that the edges are provisioned from in orchestrator, they form the tenant grouping, each of which is an isolated SD-WAN fabric for each end customer. As an add-on service, enterprises that have lots of remote users that are distributed or individual IoT devices that require a better method to connect to network than traditional VPNs, SD-Access optimization relays are also hosted by VMware across the globe, which are made use of by SD-Access clients and SD-Access connectors that are associated with the orchestrator tenant they were provisioned with. For the VMware hosted model, orchestrator gateways and client relays are consumed as a service and are fully managed by VMware in globally distributed edge POPs. These services are hosted at top-tier networks and cloud data centers. For example, in the US region, components can be found in carrier-neutral facilities like Equinix. This enables direct peering relationships with major cloud service providers for optimal connectivity to internet resources, as well as other services that are hosted in the VMware Edge POPs. And edges, clients, and connectors are deployed on premises, either at the edge of branch offices or data centers, or individual laptops, or directly on machines in the case of SD-Access client. These components can also be deployed in private or public clouds, depending on the needs of the enterprise. Now, for example, let's take a look at one of the tenants to see how the enterprise uses some of these components. Let's assume that tenant number one is a global enterprise with a few hundred branch locations with its headquarters in the US. They have chosen to be hosted on an orchestrator that is deployed in Northern America. This orchestrator has a pool of gateways that are distributed around the world. Any edges that are provisioned in the US will establish connectivity to a primary and secondary gateway that is in close proximity to the edge. Likewise, edges provisioned in India will also establish tunnels to a primary and secondary gateway located within the region of India. The same goes for any edges provisioned in Australia. But they are all created, configured, and managed out of the orchestrator hosted in the US. Orchestrators only operate on the management plane. This means that if the assigned orchestrator service becomes unavailable for any reason, the control plane and the data plane continue to operate without any impact to the overall connectivity. For resiliency of the management plane, VMware can provide a backup orchestrator in an alternate location with data replication to provide fault tolerance for the management plane. For resiliency of the control plane, each SD-WAN edge has a secondary gateway assigned. Upon gateway failure, traffic is dynamically redirected to the secondary gateway, and the metadata of any flow will include the policy of how the gateway should process the data packet. The overlay tunnels to the secondary gateway are preemptively established during provisioning and ready to carry data traffic at any time. Edges themselves can also be deployed in high availability pairs for fault tolerance, local to the remote site, and down to the standalone edges. When multiple WAN links are used, there is connectivity resiliency, even when one of the transport providers fail. Overall, a 99.99 availability SLA can be achieved for the VMware hosted model, ensuring VMware SD-WAN provides a network that is always on. The takeaways for this video are that VMware Edge Cloud Orchestrators and SD-WAN gateways are multi-tenant services that are hosted in VMware Edge POPs for the VMware hosted model. Orchestrator, gateway, and SD-Access relays are hosted in VMware Edge POPs, which are carrier-neutral facilities. Edges, SD-Access clients, and connectors are components that are deployed in or on devices that are located on premises in the customer enterprise, and that includes cloud. And lastly, fault tolerance is built across the management control and data planes. Thank you for watching this video.